Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to Luxoft's first podcast in its technology series. We're very excited about launching a new podcast program to accompany our Executive Digest report, and we hope that you'll enjoy listening to our program. My name is Pat Corcoran. I'm the Manager of Analyst Relations for Luxoft. I'm based out of our Luxoft U.S. headquarters in New York City. Well, this also means that I'm your host. I look forward to our future discussions as well. Joining me today is Ash Bhalgat, Senior Director of Products for Luxoft. Ash is based in Menlo Park, California. Ash has been with Luxoft since 2013, joining us from a career at Cisco, Polycom, and is now responsible for our test automation framework product, better known as Twister. Let me say that again. Ash is now responsible for our test automation framework product, better known as Twister. We want to make sure that Twister sticks in your mind. So today's topic, Ash, very excited to have this conversation. The future of testing and Luxoft's contribution. Thanks for being here, and let's begin.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. It's very good to be here. And yes, after being in the Valley for 15 years, I'm very excited to be working across geographical boundaries for a company that operates out of Europe and has great partnerships with many top Silicon Valley technology companies, including some of the ones that I worked for in the past. So great to be here.
Good to hear. So let's start right at the top. For those of us who aren't particularly familiar with what test automation is or what it entails, can you give me, Ash, sort of a high-level understanding of what it is we're actually doing here?
Absolutely. So the test automation is a particularly challenging area, not only for network equipment vendors, or we call them NEMs, but also for customers such as enterprise, data center, and service providers. On one hand, the NEMs need to build products that often conform to certain reference specifications, be it the design specs or the standard specs, etc., and they're always looking for tools that can help them validate product specifications against the reference spec, whatever it might be. On the other hand, customers who are purchasing, be it the enterprise customers, the service providers, the data centers, who are purchasing the products designed by the NEMs, such as OEMs and ODMs, need assurance that these products do indeed comply with the advertised specifications. In order to ensure quality assurance, NEMs often develop homegrown tools to execute TCL Perl scripts that may have developed in-house or with help of an outsourcing services vendor. The challenge with quality assurance at NEMs is that the homegrown tools become extremely complex to manage as the test beds and test scripts keep on growing exponentially. We saw this firsthand at many of our customers, but in particular, one of our optical switch NEM customer who developed a homegrown tool for sanity and integration testing soon realized that the homegrown approach wasn't really working when they needed to use this tool to test different flavors of switch platforms and scale it to test about 4,000 test scripts. Many times, NEMs try to mitigate the burden imposed by complex and monolithic test tools by adding more resources to their QA organization. It just bloats it more, right? And it's going to add more to your bottom line as well, kind of take away from the bottom line due to the operational expense you're going to have.
So let me stop you right there, Ed.
Go ahead.
So these network equipment vendors feel like they have the human capital and the expertise to develop this technology in-house. And what we're seeing, not only from our firsthand experience with customers, but in the market in general, is that the complexity of these types of issues is really creating problems and is not, bringing across the optimal business operating, shall we say, situation, which ultimately impacts the bottom line. So is that kind of what the status of in-house development looks like?
Absolutely. I mean, the QA is a very important function. They're the first customers of your product, as they're being called. Their job is to validate the product, make sure the products are really up to the mark, top-notch quality, and help them win in the market, right? However, the challenge is the QA teams are growing consistently, and that's one of the major reasons for that is sort of the inefficient or inadequate tools that they have been having to use in their organization, right? Now, for example, as you said, the operational cost is going up. The bottom line is shrinking in some sense because of the additional QA resource requirements. Now, what organizations do typically in order to reduce the QA expenses, right, the headcount resource costs, they would go ahead and distribute these QA teams across geographies where the cost of operation is not so high, right? And in order to save an operational cost, QA team would be, the geographically distributed teams are basically compounding the problem of using the same tools over and over again. Essentially, through Luxoft test automation services engagement with many of the technology customers, common issues that we have seen due to complex homegrown tools that these QA teams are using are test methodology errors introduced due to insufficient understanding of the homegrown tools, longer test cycle runs because these tools are typically serial run, they are just like single-threaded. Their test script breakages because the organization of the tool is not understood, it's not modular enough. The productivity loss in trying to enhance a tool that's not even designed for meeting a variety of testing needs and use cases, right? It's more like putting a square peg in a round hole, right? That doesn't work. And then there are always human errors due to lack of multi-tenancy. For example, if you have distributed teams who are using this at different times, and also there's no clear role demarcation. So that creates sort of the role-based access control issues and cause human errors as well. So essentially you can see a gamut of errors there that are all eventually adding it to inefficient processes, tools, and the quality of the products essentially is going to suffer due to all these problems, right? So essentially all these issues fundamentally depict a need for an extensible, modular, scalable core test infrastructure that is designed in a generic manner to solve a variety of QA lab needs and can enable geographically distributed teams, which is what the QA organization majorly looks like, to automate, manage, and integrate the quality assurance processes in an efficient and effective manner.
The only time I remember hearing that a square peg going into a round hole was actually something successful is when the astronauts of Apollo 13 rebuilt their CO2 filter in the lunar excursion module by using bags and some of the equipment from the astronaut gear. So I'm glad that you were able to kind of bring this down to earth. We could really see how complex this really is. So talk about what we have done really at Luxoft in terms of addressing these issues that we just spoke about. What did we build, and how does Twister, really make a case here?
Yeah, good point. So I think, the issue is, the challenge is sort of how do we take over this issue of, first of all, the tool itself, which seems to be at the bottom of this whole issue about operational cost, meeting quality needs, etc., the diverse set of requirements that QA teams are challenged with, right? So I think at Luxoft, what we did is we addressed this need by building an open source generic test execution framework called as Twister. Think of Twister as a generic QA test lab foundation or core test harness to build everything in and around it, right? For any of your needs, be it in different use cases that I can just talk about, basically, such as functional testing, integration testing, performance testing, system verification testing, conformance testing, application GUI testing, Selenium. I mean, all of that is sort of something which is very basic or kind of more table stakes in these days to any of the QA organizations. So we're sort of building a generic framework to sort of solve many of these use cases and the needs, right? We named this product as Twister framework, right? Twister basically for the sheer power and control it can offer to quality assurance teams. So they can handle the ever-increasing demands of a top QA organization in the best possible manner. We believe that best people need best tools and technologies to create top-notch products and make differentiation in the market. Luxoft works with many top telco NEMs and customers on their test automation needs, and hence we saw an opportunity to use our DNA and innovate here by building a modular, scalable, extensible, and generic test execution framework that can be adopted for any QA lab environment to improve upon the complexity and productivity loss of using hard-to-manage homegrown tools. That's a long one that I said, but essentially the point is it's a really good product that's really going to help you out in a major way to improve on productivity, right?
So
reduce the complexity.
In terms of the goal, then, really, are we talking about satisfying really the broad organizational QA needs here, or is there a little more to that?
Yeah, like I said, we have designed this product in a very generic manner so that you can solve your typical use cases. Like I said, the functional integration, system application, performance, etc. That's kind of the task the QA teams are handled with. But beyond that, the tool cannot be just doing the core functionality. We feel that the framework itself have to have a mindset, or should be designed in a holistic manner to look at the entire QA life cycle, right? And there are a lot of tools and technologies that are also used along with this, along with your scripts that help QA engineers to sort of assure the end-to-end quality of the product, such as there are point products like Jira, for example, for bug tracking, right? Or Jenkins for build servers, GitHub for source code repositories, Wireshark for debugging, diagnostics, and all of these are also essential part of your QA processes. Now, what we have done is Twister has these already built into the framework as plugins or extensions, which allows you to do everything in a single user interface and manage everything holistically, as opposed to having to go through 10 different point products and having to work differently and reducing your wasting a lot of your cycles on having to manage many of these things, right? Point products. The beauty of Twister is that customers can get this powerful open source framework for free, right? I repeat, it's open source and it's free. So there's no cost to customers to try it out, check it out, and how it works for them, how it can fit their needs. And they can apply the same this tool for their present QA lab needs, be it whatever regression testing they're doing or functionality or whatever use cases they are trying to address, and then extend it further themselves if they need to, because the product is open source. It's written in Python, which is a very powerful language, and then it's well understood as well. There are a lot of skill sets available for Python in the market. And then if they choose to do this through an outsourcing vendor or some sort of somebody who can provide them services around it for commercial extensions, we can build those, or there are already canned extensions like OpenFlow module that Luxoft already has built for Twister. So this is all available to the customer right away, right? And further, Twister is backed by Luxoft's award-winning professional services for framework customization for customers' own environment, or anything around the framework support, such as bugs, enhancements, architectural changes, whatever they need. We are sort of award-winning. We have our award-winning services to back that up, right?
So it sounds like it's a huge value add to the customer. Not only the fact that can we apply Luxoft skills and as I think you alluded to before, sort of the engineering DNA that we have here across the globe to be able to customize and execute this with client per their needs. But it's open source. It's free. It's out there. That seems like a tremendous value add, and the other, and not only value add for the customer, but really to the discourse surrounding sort of testing and development here. It's a very interesting model here that you've explained for us, Ash. So let's broaden the conversation a little bit more, and let's talk about the market. So, are there many players in this space? Are there very few players in this space? Have our listeners understand really what the macro picture is, and then more importantly, where does Luxoft fit in?
Perfect, good question. So the market for test automation has been highly fragmented, right? With homegrown tools that some of the organizations want to develop themselves or hire services to do this. Or there are open source tools like OpenPython, Robot Framework, and there are commercial offerings from some of the top test vendors as well, right? As I mentioned before, homegrown tools aren't designed from a test lab foundation mindset, right? What I mean is like sort of a generic framework that satisfies a lot of different needs and is powerful, scalable enough, and modular enough, right? And hence that's kind of pretty much the issue with the homegrown tools. I think we talked at length before what the challenges, including the customer example that I cited before. The open source tools, although are very cool, and there's so much open source movements around here, it's great, right? It gives you innovation faster. However, those are hard to maintain and often are community supported, right? And when you talk about NEMs and customers who they need basically professional support for the products they use as these are mission critical for them. Some of the commercial offerings from the test vendors on the market, they tend to be a little expensive, and also tied to the hardware port, because they have been in the sort of the business of testing, sort of selling the hardware ports, test ports, and also can create vendor lock-ins, right? So it's kind of the map of the landscape in the market is a little bit all over, right? And that's where I think we really saw an opportunity for a framework like Twister, right? Because we believe Twister open source framework is uniquely positioned, right? Yeah. So Twister is uniquely positioned in this market to alleviate the pain points with test automation tools available in the market. Twister is freely available, like I said, and Patrick, you said it nicely again that there's nothing to lose here, right? Just go try it out if you want, and you'll see how it fits your needs, right? And it's open source text execution framework that is generic, modular, scalable, and extensible. I really want to use these four adjectives because that's really what describes or justifies the Twister value proposition fully, right? Due to its open source nature and the Apache 2.0 license terms, there is no cost to organizations to use Twister framework, and they could fork the source code if they want from GitHub on their own, and they could enhance it further. They don't have to contribute anything back. That's the Apache 2.0 license terms, right? Further, Twister integrates with many industry standard industry tools with libraries such as SSH, FTP, etc. We also have plugins like that, like I mentioned before, for continuous integration with point products and build tools. We also have integrations for benchmarking with test tools such as Spirent and Exia. We have integrations for diagnostics with Wireshark. We have integration with database, open source database technologies such as MySQL for reporting, create real-time logs that can help you with debugging, diagnosis, all of that. So it's a really well-designed, well-thought-through product.
Sounds like it has a great resume, and
yes,
one with a very powerful framework because of Python, I would assume. Is that right?
That's right. I think the key thing, Patrick, here is we have been doing these projects for test automation or providing our knowledge consultation to a lot of the large telecom companies, and we have learned this through experience, right? That kind of cannot be wrong because you're not just trying something new here. You're trying to use your experiences, your learnings, and then put that into this kind of framework. That really gives us so many different sort of use cases, addressing and creating a generic framework for these use cases along with the integration points. That's really the mindset because that's something that we use in-house, right? Our QA teams now are starting using this kind of products because they believe this makes their life easier and makes them more productive, right? And Twister is a Python-based framework, by the way. It's so powerful. That's kind of the latest and the happening language. But that doesn't prevent you from really using Twister for the legacy stuff that you might have there with Tickle and Perl scripts, or if you want to design the newer test scripts with Python, that you're welcome to do that. But that doesn't prevent you or lock in into only one scripting language. That's very important to note as well. The other thing about Twister, which I really want to talk about a little bit here, is the distributed and parallel execution architecture. Twister has something called a central engine, which is sort of the nervous system of the architecture, and then it has the execution engines, which are actually the distributed and parallel execution framework architecture. It allows you to do faster and scalable test execution cycle runs, and reduces your cycle run times from thousands of scripts from a few days to a few hours. I mean, we have done this firsthand at some of the events for ONF or Open Networking Foundation. I'll talk about that in a second later on, or at some of the customers. And that literally their QA teams were so productive because they could reduce their regression times from almost 3 to 4 days, where the test scripts with a giant number of test cases to run. This would just do this in hours, like a couple hours, and they'll be done, right? So much productivity improvement because of a good tool that they've been using. The best thing about Twister, by the way, is it's fully customizable, and customers can adopt it for their own needs themselves or can avail the professional services. I think I couldn't say this enough because it's very important to support the product that you have as opposed to just having it one time and not being able to use because you don't know what's happening with the product. So it's open source so you could learn everything about it. There's documentation out there, but if you want professional services from experts like us who have designed this tool from bottom up, from ground up, you're certainly welcome to do that. So I think that's really important to know. And again, we are not locking, or customers don't have to be only knowing about Python. They can use Tcl, Perl, whatever they have today. Bring those as a library, import those scripts into Twister. It'll execute it. It's very simple. There's how-to guide, how to take these scripts and how to fire them as projects, and how to make them scalable, distributed using Twister. In summary, Twister is a powerful open source generic test harness, test execution framework that's freely available, supported commercially with extensions, like I said, modules for OpenFlow testing, and is also fully supported by Luxoft professional services. I talked a lot here, but I really want to, I know the engineers really like to check the product out. So I would encourage you folks to go on the Twister project, the open source project website, called as www.twistertesting. That's all one word, twistertesting.com. And download it from GitHub for test driving, right? Twister is Twister, just so we don't have any other different spelling for the same phonetically if this is sounding different, but that's what it is. So go twistertesting.com and check out the source code on GitHub and let us know if you have any questions. There's also ways to contact us on the website.
Well, it is evidently clear to me, Ash, that Luxoft has thought and rethought this through in terms of both the strategy behind deploying Twister to the market, but also the tactics of what it can do, from the open source piece to the customizable aspect of it in terms of the professional services that Luxoft can provide. Now, one would assume that we can have the greatest technical design specs in the world, but you need to be seen as a legitimate player in the market, right? So this space that we play in has to recognize Luxoft as one of the big dogs. So talk to me about how we've leveraged some of the associations, some of the outreach with the technology analysts in the space. Talk to me about partnerships that we are currently engaged in. And really, Ash, what I want to know is, are we eating our own dog food? If we're going to be a big dog in this space, are we playing by the same rules?
Absolutely, yeah. So first of all, I think, as I said before, we eat our own dog food, right? We have, and by associations, I don't just mean external associations with industry folks, but also our own customers, right? That's where we say we eat our own dog food. We preach what we basically we practice what we preach, right? Which is Twister being used in all of our QA automation, test automation projects, consulting assignments. We tell about how Twister could be really adopted for the customer's environment, and customers are okay with that. Basically, they say, yeah, that's a great idea, and then we try it out, and then they see the difference. Like I said, a optical NEM vendor, without having to name the vendor, right, we made a huge difference for them, right, and there's an ongoing engagement with this. And there are other examples as well. I just cited that as a really a challenging task that we took on, and Twister helped save the day, right? The other one is, secondly, in terms of the engagement with associations that you brought up, Patrick, Luxoft is a member of Open Networking Foundation since 2012, right? Open Networking Foundation is also known as ONF. That might have been an acronym you might have heard more. ONF is transforming the networking industry with software-defined networking, or SDN, and is providing a unique architecture to bring direct software programmability to traditional rigid networks. Luxoft heavily participates in the testing and interoperability working group of Open Networking Foundation that defines the test specification for OpenFlow protocol. That's really the protocol that's prevalent out there as a southbound interface that is really open, extensible, and allows people to build interoperable products, right? In fact, Twister has actually built a plugin for OpenFlow 1.3 version today that helps customers such as NEMs, data center, and service providers to validate OpenFlow 1.3 conformance. Twister's commercial OpenFlow 1.3 test module comprises of over 450 OpenFlow test cases written in Python, right, and have been used and availed by the ONF at various official events such as the ONF Plugfest or the recent OpenFlow driver competition that ONF sort of hosted and launched and finished it along with using Twister. And Twister has been really used a lot in for verifying OpenFlow conformance and interoperability among various OpenFlow switch vendors or the competition entries for this driver competition. Many of the ONF member companies have acknowledged benefits of the Twister OpenFlow 1.3 commercial module and how it has helped them in uncovering 1.3 conformance issues, improve the product quality, and time to market. In fact, in March of 2014, just very recently, at one of the key ONF events called as ONF Member Workday, where all the member companies come together and they share the progress, highlight issues, et cetera, that was held. This event was held in Santa Clara, California recently. Luxoft was awarded an Outstanding Contribution Award by ONF for its continuous and ongoing contribution to OpenFlow community.
Oh, that's
so that's
great.
kind of on the ONF, right? Yeah.
That's great, Ash. It's really a very rigorous relationship you guys have with, I mean, in terms of you guys, the Twister side of Luxoft's house have with ONF. So talk to me a little bit more then about kind of the partnership angle and a little bit from the market tech firms.
Absolutely, yeah. So on the partnerships angles, we are our core competency, right, as Luxoft as a company has been the knowledge, right, the knowledge base, the people, the practices, and the frameworks that we're building, sort of, right. However, we do want to make sure that we are partnered with the best of the breed sort of companies out there who are making a difference, who have been leaders in a particular market. For example, for the test equipment market, we know Spirent Communications is one of the it's one of the top leaders. I mean, it's a top leader, and there's maybe another company, a couple of companies there. But we struck a partnership with Spirent Communications in fall of 2013 to offer a comprehensive OpenFlow compliance test solution using Twister framework. Now, Spirent is a great strategic partner to Luxoft as it extends Luxoft's market reach into the network test market and offers Luxoft professional services to Spirent's customers to customize the quality assurance processes for continuous integration, test case development, and automation, and also offer our sort of knowledge in terms of bringing the new and emerging technologies like OpenFlow, SDN to Spirent customers, right? So that's sort of a win-win for both Spirent and Luxoft. Last but not the least, Twister is a strategic investment for Luxoft, right? And we believe open source is a great way forward to drive the community-driven innovation into this framework. However, it also satisfies the organizational need for commercial support from professionals. This unique value proposition through leadership, in thought processing and really coming up with new ideas is really well received by many of the top analyst firms such as Gartner, Forrester. So I think we believe we are on the right path. We have the partnerships going on. We have the associations or the forums, the standard bodies that are working with us. We have our customers. We have the analysts who we briefed and we talked to them and they said, yeah, this seems really interesting and very, very right thing to do. Overall, I think we have sort of a lot of bases covered and we're working through all of these different channels.
It certainly sounds like a very well-developed and executed plan up until this point, Ash. I certainly commend you and the rest of the team for their efforts across the board. So, we have a little under 10 minutes left. I want to address, really two very important questions, I think, and I'm glad that we kind of save them for last because I think this is where we could really hit home, with this testing world that we're really a part of, from the ONF Foundation to the open source community to obviously our current clients and some of the intellectual discourse surrounding what we're doing here. Now, let's make it simple. I am a purchaser of technology products. Talk to me about the simple value proposition behind it all. I've heard you mention, cutting testing time down. We talk about cost savings. We talk about reducing time to market. So, my question is it that vanilla? Is it that simple of a value proposition behind it that from our end, we see a tremendous benefit from it? So walk me through some of that. And then, I'd like you to reflect a little bit on, the future here, right? there's this value proposition, one that's going to stick for a while, one that the market is craving, one that you see evolving as things go on. So, let's start at value, and let's really end in the future of value.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's a great point. I think given that we talk so much about Twister and so many different things, I think really helps to summarize what the value proposition is of Twister, right? So let me say this up front. Twister isn't just a regular testing automation tool, right? I mean, there's a clutter of tools out there. People build their scripts and they call them testing tools. I mean, all kind of things there, right? Many companies try to build some kind of tools in-house as well, right? Like we said, the homegrown approach, right? Let me say, if I want to say what is the elevator pitch for Twister, it is really that Twister is really a test harness, a well thought through and complete generic test execution framework that is designed to address broader QA organization needs in a holistic manner. That's what it does. It's supposed to be, okay, you have today some some testing scenarios that your QA team is tasked with doing, be it the unit testing, be it the functional testing or the regression testing or integration, whatever use cases you might have to or whatever testing needs you have. Twister has been designed to support that, right, to solve that need and in a holistic manner. So it's not just for that particular use case, but also what goes around it as a process, right? That's what is the key value proposition for Twister. Now we'll look at the day jobs of the software developers, development testers, or the dev test engineers as we call them, or the test automation engineers who have to automate the whole process, or the QA team leaders like the managers, directors, the VP of engineering sort of who is tasked to make sure that the costs are managed well and the product quality is always top notch, the bug tracking is going on and it's always in control. And this is where Twister is really valuable. It has the things such as, like I say, the three philosophies, the three pillars of Twister architecture are, it's the execute, which is all about execution, faster execution, distributed execution. Second one is integrate, so integrate with all the tools and processes. And third one is the manage. Manage is very important as well. The reports, the tools, the logs that are available easily in Twister, scheduling of the reports, emailing of the reports, all of those cool features are very important for managers as well. So that is also the key part of a complete end-to-end system that allows you to manage the holistic QA process, right? Twister is not only to address the most common use cases, by the way, right? If we say functionality integration, system regression, application testing, that are the kind of common use cases. It can also help you execute, integrate, and manage the entire QA process, like I said. And the beauty is it's designed from a little bit of also the commercial angle. If you see there's an enterprise market, there's a commercial market, right, or the consumer market. If you look at it, the consumer market has really cool, easy-to-use tools, a lot more than the enterprise market traditionally, right? This could be simple UI, very easy-to-use features. We sort of brought that into the enterprise market with Twister as well. Like, for example, Twister has this thing called a simple drag-and-drop UI. Think about Windows here, right, for a second. Or Mac, in some sense, if you're used to gestures and you love gestures, right? Think of some of that. We brought that ease of use element as well into the product when people have to use this day in and day out for so many things, right? It's to test harness, it's your infrastructure. It got to be simple, very dumb in terms of using it, not have to think a lot and not too tedious to use it, right? So it's a rich and powerful feature set, including the UI, that will help you improve overall product quality, productivity by an order of magnitude. I'm sure that you'll find that as you start using Twister, that is really making a huge difference in your QA team's outcomes, and your engineering teams are going to be happy with it. And as I said, it's designed to be an open and extensible architecture, so it's more like a Swiss Army knife for satisfying different use cases and also any emerging needs in future. So it's foolproof, not only for today, for tomorrow, in terms of software-defined networks and open flow as one of the areas that's really spanning out. We're thinking about expanding it more in the future as well for more and more needs of the network vendors or NEMs, right, or the customers for that reason. So it's one platform that will help you to do everything in future, steal it today, and then take that investment into future, right? So I think your second question was about the market, right? What does the future of the market look like?
Yeah,
right,
because it's always a tough one to answer. We can always forecast and assume and calculate and model, but it seems like this is such a rich, diverse, product here that is it difficult to really understand what the future holds for this market? I mean, what do we see out there? What do we know out there? And really, let's close the loop here for our listeners so they understand, where we're headed here.
Right. So I would talk mainly in the context of the networking industry here, because that's what we have been speaking here mainly. Twister could be used in other industries as well, but right now let's focus on the networking market, right? We believe that Twister open source project is a great step forward for the test assurance market in general, right? As you can see, the networking industry is experiencing a major shift from hardware-centric products to software-driven innovation through network virtualization, right, as one of the technologies, right? SDN is being part of that. We believe that this shift is not just limited to products, but also to the processes that go into making these products. So quality assurance is definitely an area which has been heavily hardware-centric for many years, and software-defined quality assurance is really an evolution of this market. We believe that Twister open source project is at the epicenter of this transformation and will enable many software-based QA innovations to enable traditional networking and telecom vendors and customers evolve and adopt emerging networking standards and transformations such as SDN, OpenFlow, or the network function virtualization, NFV. Luxoft's SDN and software-based assurance professional services practice will further enable customers to enhance this transformation by addressing gaps such as skills, know-how in the technology terms, and understanding of the best practices. So it's kind of the market is evolving into the new set of paradigms such as SDN, and I think we have this product, sort of the framework designed to take care of that as well, as we showed already with the OpenFlow commercial module, right? That's available. But I think that's where the market is heading, and we have a right product for the right needs as such. Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, this has been a very, very interesting discussion, Ask. I think it's been a combination of really the technical side, the intellectual discourse, the market as we see it, the evolution of the market as we see it, and really the value that Twister can bring to organizations. It's been a pleasure to really learn more about what we're doing with this product, what we're doing sort of as it relates to the vertical side, and how we're really embracing the community in terms of the development side. So, Ash, if I had to put you on the spot, if you can give me 3 sentences that you want our listeners to walk away from this podcast with about Twister, what would they be?
I'd say 3 adjectives. I would make it even shorter, right? So I'd say
Works for me.
a core test infrastructure. That's, I would say, the 3 adjectives now. It's open, extensible, and scalable. So think about Twister. Yeah.
Open, extensible, and scalable.
Right.
Well, let's end on that note. Ash, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Patrick. Appreciate that.
This is Pat Corcoran, signing off.